This is the fraction review, part 5. We are talking about multiplying fractions. Okay, first of all, the answer to any multiplication problem is called product. Not only is that important because of the directions for the problems on this section, it becomes really important later when we start working word problems and we need to know what these words mean. Okay? So you're going to be asked to find a product and you're going to be asked to write your answer in lowest terms. The rule for multiplication looks like this. And we've already seen something very similar to this when we talked about the rule for equivalent fractions. Right here we talked about multiplying top and bottom by the same value. Here we're multiplying by just a fraction. It's not C over C, it's C over D, but the process is essentially the same. If you're multiplying fractions, you multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. Okay. Now with multiplication and multiplication alone, we can cross cancel. I'm going to be showing you exactly how this works. It allows us to reduce the fraction before we multiply. We get to deal with smaller numbers. It's very nice. We'll work things both ways for a little while. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about a good gut sense about what it means. Okay, let's talk about 1/4 times 1/3. One of the key words for multiplication when we talk about word problems and everything else is the word of. Of often means multiplication. Sometimes in a word problem, it's just the English word of, so it's a little bit confusing, but often it's multiplication. So let's talk about just in English language. What is 1/3 of 1/4? So I've got these two pictures, and they represent the same value of the whole. They are supposed to be, at least, drawn the same size. 1/4 of this would be that, right? That's 1/4. And so 1/4 of this is still that. Now, what is 1/3 of 1/4? Well, this is 1/4, and now it's broken up into 3 pieces, right? So 1/3 of 1/4 is that part right there, right? Well, that's one piece out of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's 1/12 of this whole big piece. 1/3 of 1/4 of it is 1/12. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 3 is 12. Obviously, we're not going to draw a picture every single time we do a multiplication, but understand this is really what is going on here. Okay? So let's work some multiplication problems, and we'll write our answers in lowest terms. For the first couple, for the first one, I'm going to work it both ways. I'm going to show you directly, straight across, how to multiply and then reduce. And then I'll work it again, showing you how cross cancellation works. On a lot of these problems, we'll end up kind of working them both ways, or some combination of things, not necessarily working them both ways. We'll go a little bit one way and then we'll use another method. These are not hard and fast rules. These are just paths through the problem. Okay, so let's look at this first one and multiply straight across the top. Okay, so if I work it straight across the top, I need to do 5 times 18 over 6 times 25. 5 times 18 is 90. 6 times 25 is 150. Now we need to reduce this. Well, if they end in 0, they're divisible by 10. And any number, 10, Maggie. So divide both by 10. And you get 9 over 15. Now, we've definitely reduced it a lot. We need to see if we've reduced it all the way. 9 and 15, they are both divisible by 3. So I need to do that. Divide both by 3, and that gives me 3 over 5, and 3/5 is in lowest terms. So this is our answer, and that's what you get when you multiply directly. you tend to end up with big numbers, and big numbers are harder to reduce, but it is straightforward. Okay, now how do we do this cross cancellation thing? I'm going to rewrite the problem. First of all, if the individual fraction can reduce, you can reduce the individual fraction before you multiply, and you're going to be dealing with smaller numbers from the very beginning. Okay, that's not the case here. Now with cross cancellation, what we can do is we can look on the diagonals and reduce the fractions there. We can reduce up and down. We can reduce on diagonals with multiplication. We just cannot reduce straight across. Okay, so if I look here at the 6 and the 18, 6 and 18 are both divisible by 6. If I divide this by 6, I get a 1. So right here I'm dividing that by a 6. If I divide this by a 6, I get a 3. So now instead of an 18 here, I have a 3. Instead of a 6 here, I have a 1. Now looking on the other diagonal, 5 and 25. Both of these are divisible by 5. They both end in 5. If I divide this by a 5, I get a 1. If I divide this by a 5, I get a 5. Now multiply what we have. Okay, wrong pen. I have 1 times 3 over 1 times 5, which gives me 3/5, which is the same as that. We get to deal with smaller numbers. Now, this cross cancellation for larger things can get ugly, and this is what I mean by you might want to use some combination of approach. You reduce it a little bit and then see what numbers you have left and then reduce further. Or you might choose to multiply and then reduce later. It all works together. Continuing in the next section.